Part 75. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhenshen. Chapter 741. In just a few seconds, Xiao Yapfu clearly saw several enemies ambushing him. A strong human man and an old human man, both are masters of telekinesis. It seems that he can defeat almost any division commander. There are 2 hovering dragon-shaped mind beasts and 200 to 300 flying swords with automatic navigation around. The situation seems not good. What worried him the most was the looming figures in the distance. And the attention that I don't know where it comes from. Whether it is the flying sword or the dragon-shaped mind beast, Pufu is relatively restrained, causing him to be unable to clone himself for a long time, otherwise many cells and tissues will be destroyed. Not being able to separate himself still has a great impact on Pufu. In fact, Xiaoming and others did not know Pufu's ability before, so this can be regarded as a blind cat meeting a dead mouse. Catwoman and Yuppie among the 3 guards have been restrained by other hunters. Xiaoming has no other choice but to assign Pufu to these 2. This has to be said to be God's will. After a short fight, Jinyo was the first to figure out Pufu's trick. Fearing that Xiaoming wouldn't understand, he immediately shouted. "Who is that?" This flamboyant moth's ability is to clone and reorganize, so he can easily run away. Let your flying sword block the perimeter. As he spoke, the twin dragons were already entangled under his control, and at the same time, Ziba, who was full of energy, also rushed forward. It was up to them to tangle with Pufu, while Jinyo waited for an opportunity to attack from the outside. Xiaoming's 300s and Pakuto were flying around at high speed further out, covering the battlefield like a cauldron, unable to even fly above their heads. Xiaoming moved very quickly, and the 2 members of the Haka family who beat the enemy nodded secretly. Now Puff had to accelerate from scratch, and that initial speed was not enough for him to break through the encirclement. As long as he is blocked by the flying sword for a moment, Xuanglong and Ziba will come up to entangle him again. Even if he finds an opportunity and uses his ultimate move, he can only destroy 1 dragon-shaped mind beast at a time. And every time this time, Jinyo will add another flying dragon in time. The mind power that overflowed after eating the spiritual energy fruit was far from being used up. It is also because it is difficult to control 2 flying dragons at the same time, so Jinyo will only occasionally sneak attack 1 or 2 hands, and will not go up to fight head-on. With him monitoring the battlefield, it would be difficult for Pufu to succeed in any conspiracy. At the same time, Xiaoming also let a small number of flying swords fly into the inner circle from time to harass Pufu, so that he never had time to relax. Pufu's body speed is not fast enough to escape. It would be even harder to escape with a clone. Pufu, like Yuppie, was also at an impasse. At this time, Catwoman was still treating wheat. Jinyo and Ziba were hired by Xiaoming, which affected the original plot. Jiju, who was supposed to be beaten to death by them, is still alive and kicking. As the leader of the fastest Chimera Ant division, Cheetah Kiddo enjoys fighting humans and relies on his speed to kill them. So this time he took the initiative to find Killua. Before that, Kiju had also appeared on the battlefield fighting Xiaoming's army. However, facing Xiaoming's crowd tactics, his speed advantage could not be used. Suffering a long-range covering attack from the plant-zombie combination army, no matter how fast he is, he will still be hit. However, Jiju is one of the few Chimera ants who have the ability to escape in front of Xiaoming's army. Xiaoming's men couldn't catch up with him either. He didn't want to get involved in the chaotic battle between the Chimera ants and the Xiaoming army in the capital of Dongguotu. I suffered a loss once. Besides, killing cannon fodder like skeleton soldiers, puppets, and zombies really doesn't give you any sense of accomplishment at all. Where Catwoman and Yuppie were, he didn't dare go over to flirt with them. As for the Ant King's battlefield, I don't even dare to think about it. At this time, the palace was also in chaos, because Xiao Ming had just launched a death harvest here. The Chimera ants killed too many humans in the palace. There were too many corpses to eat, and except for some that were stored in kitchens and warehouses, the rest had to be hastily buried. As a result, Xiao Ming's undead magic was used, and the palace was filled with skeleton soldiers for a while. Some of the Chimera ants responsible for guarding and patrolling the palace were entangled by the skeleton soldiers. Therefore, they had no spare energy to help the three guards. Then again, they're not really loyal. Where the guards are locked in a hard fight, they won't waste their lives foolishly. Xiao Ming had some free time and collected all the less than 1,000 Chimera ant eggs into the Guangmingding. Huang Xiaoming had nothing to do inside, and he casually used the Zerg Conquer skill at the insect eggs one by one. Everyone has the same origin, so it is not easy to conquer them. Jiju, who was idle and bored, found a roof of a side building and sat down, licking his paws. He happened to see Killua coming out of the VIP room. But he was very happy. He rushed over as fast as he could, patted Killua on the shoulder, and pulled Killua into his own exclusive closed space. This is his special ability. Since he was not defeated by Mo Lao, this ability was retained. A circular prairie-like space with an hourglass as tall as a person in the center. It is surrounded by a hemispherical barrier. Neither the barrier nor the hourglass can be destroyed. The hourglass time is 8 hours. Killua needs to play a hide-and-seek game with the cheetah Kido in this space. As long as Killua can touch the base within 8 hours, it will be Killua's victory. The ability of Jiju will also be completely abolished. If Kido is not caught, Killua's fate will be worrying. I am the fish on the chopping board, and I am the lightest. When Xiao Ming saw Kido slap Killua and the two disappeared, he was also shocked. Although Kido's strength is average, his characteristics are too obvious. I don't know how troublesome his special ability will be. I am still begging the Zaldik family to do things for me. If I see Killua in trouble, it will be difficult to explain. However, Xiao Ming's worry lasted less than 3 minutes, and Killua appeared again holding Kido's neck. The handsome silver-haired guy was still flashing with electricity from time to time. Kido in his hand has become an electric roasted kitten, and his body, which is crispy on the outside and tender on the inside, exudes an attractive fragrance. Seeing this scene, Xiao Ming probably knew the reason why Killua won. Killua's telekinesis ability is a transformation system. It can convert telekinesis into electricity. Using electricity to stimulate body cells, Killua has extremely high speed and powerful attack power. Guido, this unlucky kid, had to provoke Killua when he could have provoked anyone else. He was just crushed. In terms of speed, when Killua launched his super speed, even the three guards couldn't react. In the original book, Killua once beat up Yuppie and Pufu. No matter how fast Guido is, he is not as fast as the three guards. Naturally, he was easily taken down by Killua and burned to charcoal in the blink of an eye. Who made Killua feel bad now? Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 742. The fierce decisive battle in Dongguodo's capital and the royal palace became more and more intense. After the three major guards were tied down, Xiao Ming could finally let those well-known subordinates out to play with peace of mind. As long as they didn't run into Yuppie, Bit, and Pufu, they wouldn't die so easily. Although the cannon fodders such as the skeleton soldiers and puppets tied down most of the Chimera ants below the division commander, the losses were really too heavy. The racial talents of the Chimera ants made their defense and vitality not low, and it was difficult for the cannon fodder to cause them to lose personnel. They could only use the human wave tactics by relying on numbers. If the battle continued like this, Xiao Ming's army would eventually win, but some of the fast Chimera ants might run away. Even those who couldn't run away were exhausted to death, not beaten to death. Time would also be delayed for a long time. After Xiao Ming's soulful subordinates came out, the the situation was very different. As the commander-in-chief, Xiao Ming would definitely not let them fight fairly. He would definitely use concentrated forces to defeat them one by one. The subordinates were divided into two teams, active in the capital and the palace respectively. You should know that Xiao Ming has spent about 2 years in the reincarnation world this time. These mind beasts and subordinates have also practiced for 2 years, and everyone's strength has been significantly improved. The team in the capital consists of 13 aliens. They were originally level 5, that is, sea-level monsters. Xiao Ming chose to let them practice mind power specifically. What they learned was naturally the mind power practice method of the heart source flow. Of course, when practicing, they usually adopt human form. When fighting, they are mostly in alien form. With the dual cooperation of sufficient nutrition and advanced practice methods, they have made considerable progress. After all, they have the genetic information of aliens and chimera ants, and they like fighting and killing. Therefore, in terms of practice, the aliens are much more diligent than Xiao Ming himself. The 3 guards, Old A, Old B, and Old C, have almost reached the lower level of level 6B. The 10 warriors, from the oldest to the 10th, have also reached the level of the upper level of the 5th level, and the more powerful ones can also approach the 6th level. The bodies of the alien Kongs were replaced by metal by Xiao Ming, making them no less tough than the chimera ants. 13 Kongs form a team, which is equivalent to 3 low-level division commanders with 10 high-level soldier captains. With this strength, if a chimera ant is attacked by surprise, no one can withstand it except the Ant King and the 3 guards. Only the division commander can hold on for a few times. However, there are only about a dozen division commanders of chimera ants in total. Several of them have been killed by hunters and Xiao Ming in previous battles, some have run away. There are a total of 4 division commanders left at this time. There are 3 left in the palace, and only 1 in the capital. It is a division commander who looks like a lion. His original name is Haga, and he changed his name to Lialu after leaving the queen. He has the genes of the lion, the king of beasts, mixed in his body, and always wants to be the king. So he also got a slightly mocking nickname, Lion King. The main force of the capital's defense force is a large number of puppets controlled by Catwoman, and the backbone is a group of chimera ants headed by Lion King. Lion King deeply understands the horror of the Ant King and the 3 guards, and believes that the Ant King will be the final winner. So he stands firmly on this position. However, he also has his own little ambitions. His special mind-connecting ability is called Debt Issuing Machine. By selling favors to the other party first, in return, he can temporarily borrow the other party's ability. So far, he has made many people with abilities owe him favors. And what Lion King wants to do most is to make the 3 guards and the Ant King owe him favors, so that he can temporarily gain very powerful abilities. I have to say that this division commander's idea is still beautiful. Unfortunately, the goal is wrong. How could the Ant King and the guards owe him favors? Besides, his little thoughts can't be hidden in front of Owl Yapfu. Of course, the most important thing is that as a strong man, you must have your own strength. How can you be a strong man if you always borrow the abilities of others? This is first of all a lack of confidence in your own strength. In addition, borrowing the abilities of others may seem good, but in fact, there will be side effects. In fact, this is also the reason why Haga failed in the original work. He had too superficial an understanding of the borrowed abilities. In today's decisive battle, the Lion King was even more unlucky than in the original work. First of all, Xiao Ming's army was directly teleported to the interior of the city through the wormhole when it was completely unexpected. It caught the chimera ants off guard. After a while, because Neferpitou had to treat Xiaomei's injuries, the puppets all lay down. Haga only had the soldiers of the chimera ants left, which was really not enough. Those who fought with them before were all cannon fodder sent by Xiao Ming, and they could barely hold on. Fighting with skeleton soldiers and puppets, a random blow would knock down a large number of them. As for the Shadow Clone and the 7 Stars Shadow Clone, Xiaoming did not dare to use them much. This is the first time this has happened, and Xiaoming feels that his energy may not be enough. In the long run, with the supplement of triple source energy, Xiaoming's supernatural energy will definitely be enough. The reason why it is not enough at present is that Xiaoming needs to have enough strategic reserves. Pufu and others are not easy to deal with. In the chaos, new crises may arise at any time. Xiaoming needs to urgently call for a large amount of energy to fight. So there must be sufficient preparation. This makes Xiaoming cautious. You can't waste precious energy in other less critical places. It's better to use more cannon fodder to consume. The capital is not an important target at all, and it's not worth wasting. At the beginning, these chimera ants just need to be temporarily delayed. After the 3 guards were pinned down by special hunters, Xiaoming freed up his hands, and the situation here soon turned around completely. The Lion King has a subordinate named Violeta. There are a lot of dragonfly genes in his body. He is an excellent scout. I fly high in the sky, and his mind beasts, satellite dragonflies are everywhere in the city. It can monitor the entire city. It is of great help to the Lion King. At this time, Xiaoming freed up his hands and shot Violeta to death in the air with a moon arrow. In the telepathy, the dragonfly chimera ant no longer reported the battle situation in real time. Haga felt something was wrong. Then, the low-level chimera ant soldiers and captains lost contact one after another in less than 10 minutes. He was even more on pins and needles. Just when he was still hesitating whether to escape, a dozen alien Kongs jumped towards him from all directions with their fangs and claws bared. Their bloody mouths were clearly visible. Their appearance was even more ferocious and terrifying than that of the chimera ants. Especially since these guys were all made of metal, the Lion King was also shocked at first glance. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 743. As expected of someone who dared to plot against the Ant King, the Lion King Haga remained calm in the face of danger and punched down with all his might. The solid roof was shattered by his punch, and the body of the chimera ant fell down with the bricks and tiles, falling into the huge church below. He chose this position to fight with full consideration. This church also has a huge underground building that can be used as an air raid shelter. When the enemy came, Haga secretly dug tunnels that extended in all directions below. Ensure that he can hide or escape at any time. Seeing him fall, more than a dozen aliens also jumped down. Some landed on the ground, and some climbed up the wall, surrounding Haga in the middle. Without saying a word, they began to attack in turns. A few words of mouth before the fight are not the fighting style of the aliens. The Lion King wanted to say a few words first to ease the relationship. He is not a die-hard fan of the Ant King, and it would be best if he could not fight to his death. In the original novel, he wanted to kill MaleProtagonist wholeheartedly because the expedition team was at a disadvantage in the face of the chimera ants, and he wanted to take MaleProtagonist's head to get a share of the credit. Now the situation between the two sides is unclear, and the expedition team is obviously very strong. Besides, Haga is outnumbered, so it is normal for him to want to find a way out. If it were someone else in the expedition team, they would probably chat with him. Of course, it would be good to have one less enemy. But unfortunately, Haga encountered the group that was least willing to talk. Even if the alien King Kong could talk, he was too lazy to chat with the enemy. In the air, the royal guard Lao was in control. He appeared in human form, that is, half human and half demon form, spread his huge eagle wings, and shot a string of feather darts when he saw the opportunity. His role is similar to Zhang Zhong on the battlefield of Yupi. He creates trouble for the enemy and fills in the gaps for his companions. Flying side by side with him were the second one who used a bow and arrow, and the eighth one who had bat-like wings and used a spear. There were more than 3 of them who could fly, but they were just controlling the situation, and they didn't need so many flying aliens. With the 3 of them, the Lion King was beaten very hard. If he was not careful and exposed a flaw, he would be attacked by the 3 above from the sky. And even if he found the flaw of the alien, it would be difficult to seize the opportunity to expand the results. He would be disrupted by these 3 again. The other aliens fought in beast form, i.e. alien form. The aliens have fast body speed and strong attack, which is a great threat to Haga. Especially Old B, his physical fitness is the strongest among all the aliens. If he is hit by him, he will be disabled. Haga was beaten with scars and bloodstains under the continuous attacks of more than 10 aliens. The most severe attacks injured the bones, and these attacks came from the guard's Old C. He is similar to Mir 1, with chameleon genes. His invisibility is not as abnormal as Mir 1, but his attack is sharp enough. Haga couldn't see Lao Si, so he couldn't prepare in advance. He was deeply stabbed several times by Lao Si's dagger during the battle. If Lao Si didn't need to dodge other aliens, Haga's lion head might have been cut off. He has tried his best, and most of the injuries he suffered were superficial, and his life is not in danger for the time being. But it would definitely not work if he continued to fight like this. In a hurry, Haga used the borrowed trick tube. This trick was originally to summon a lot of water to drown the enemy. He rode a skateboard, holding a harpoon, surfing on the water, ready to deal with enemies who popped up to breathe at any time. In the original book, he used this trick to kill Mo Lao. Now, he used this trick to escape. It can be seen that he was forced into a miserable situation. The skateboard and harpoon are equipment specially matched with the original Nin ability user for the tube ability. However, the cunning Haga also prepared another equipment for himself, an oxygen tank. This time he summoned a huge water flow upwards to separate himself from the aliens chasing him down. Wearing an oxygen mask, he began to dive down, breaking the floor and entering the underground church, preparing to escape from the underground passages dug in advance along the water flow. However, strangely, Haga was rushed to the ground by the water flow, but was not rushed into any passage. This shouldn't be. The Lion King took a closer look and couldn't help cursing in his heart. Go. Who is so wicked that he gambled all the passages I dug before? TNND, there is no little JJ for giving birth to a son. Who else could it be? Of course it was Xiao Ming. A few days ago, Haga organized people to dig underground passages. Xiao Ming saw it clearly in the scanned map. At that time, he didn't alarm the snake, but on the eve of the decisive battle, Xiao Ming secretly used alchemy to seal all the passages. This was just a piece of cake for Xiao Ming. But it was a disaster for Haga. Not only did the escape plan fail, fighting underwater was much more clumsy than fighting on the ground. Lions are not fish. But his enemies, the aliens, were all good underwater fighters. Aliens are amphibious. How could they let go of such an opportunity? Haga tried desperately to swim to the surface, but was knocked down by the aliens again and again. Several oxygen tanks were also torn. Soon, the oxygen stored in the Lion King's body was exhausted, and he died of suffocation just like in the original book. His body, like other killed chimera ants, was stuffed into Guangmingding by Xiao Ming. At this point, the chimera ants active in the capital of Dongguodo were completely wiped out. Xiao Ming's army here immediately rushed to the palace like a tide. The chimera ants in the palace have more troops than those in the capital, but Xiao Ming did not send many troops here at the beginning. Therefore, the battle here is fairly evenly matched. The Chimera ants' captains and soldiers fought on equal terms with the skeletons harvested by Xiao Ming. Among the 3 division commanders, Cheetah Keto has died at the hands of Killua. The wolf-shaped Chimera ant Wilfin is a traitor. When he found out that the situation was not good, he contacted a few Chimera ants who were not loyal to the Ant King and drove away secretly in a car. He is really a man of insight. This vision and mind are much stronger than that of the Lion King Ha. It's just right that he ran away. Xiao Ming can concentrate on dealing with the last division commander, the lobster-shaped Chimera ant Brabuda. Brabuda is a long-range shooter. With 2 large claws open, he can shoot powerful telekinetic bullets. He was facing 2 transformers, one was Xiajia, and the other was the transformer Zhanghong. Both of their mechanical forms were armed bulletproof vehicles, equipped with energy shields, and their defense was amazing. Their weapons were hacker energy guns. Although their power was much less than that of Brabuda's telekinetic bullets, their shooting accuracy was much higher than that of the lobster. In the fight, Brabuda suffered more. Besides, Brabuda's shooting consumed his own telekinesis. Xiajia and Zhanghong used endless hacker energy blocks for shooting. Their endurance was also different, and the lobster really met its nemesis. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 744. Brabuda's final ending was actually not bad. He was recruited by Xiao Ming. Xiao Ming is indeed not as strong as the Chimera Ant King, but his potential is definitely far superior. Brother Lobster can be regarded as a blessing in disguise. At the beginning of entering the world of Hunter x Hunter, Xiao Ming once recruited a lot of low-level Chimera Ant soldiers. Although those soldiers are very beastly, they have not started to eat people yet. Xiao Ming just needs to restrain them after they are subdued. Among the Chimera Ants, Lobster is fierce enough, but he is not a Chimera Ant with blood on his hands. He has a clear purpose in fighting, and he is not interested in killing humans. His loyalty to the Ant King is also average. Brabuda has no ambition and does not want to find a place to be king. Following the Ant King is nothing more than a good shade under the big tree. Now the big tree is obviously unreliable, and it is reasonable for him to surrender. Before, after running and shooting with Zhanghong and Xiaojia in the palace for dozens of minutes, his telekinesis was almost exhausted. At this moment, he remembered to run away. However, Xiaojia and Zhanghong turned into armored bulletproof vehicles, which were much faster than him. Moreover, when he was physically exhausted, Xiaohong and the 100 Ghosts became an insurmountable obstacle for him. Xiaohong's own combat power was less than level 5, and the 100 Ghosts were less than level 4, both of which were only at the D level. The B-level lobster's telekinetic cannon also happened to be more restrained against ghosts. So in the early stage, they didn't dare to appear in front of Brabuda at all, fearing that they would be bombarded to death by a few consecutive shots. It's different now. Brother Lobster is already weak and can't launch 2 strong attacks, let alone continuous shooting. At this time, being beaten will only hurt but not destroy. With the existence of the 100 Ghosts box, the 100 Ghosts are not afraid of being hurt. If they are injured, they can just hide in the 100 Ghosts box to heal. It's no big deal. So the 100 Ghosts, led by Xiaohong, blocked Brabuda's escape route. He took one look at the enemies piled up in layers, and immediately became timid, and hurriedly raised his pincers and knelt down to surrender. Xiaohong, Xiajia, Zhanghong, and others were not as tyrannical as the alien King Kong. Since the enemy surrendered, they did not kill them all. Xiaoming looked from a distance and thought that this crayfish was okay, so he used Zerg Conquer and Zerg Evolution Needle on him and incorporated him into a Zerg human. Since he was one of them, Xiaoming also gave Brabuda a spiritual fruit to restore his strength. Then he, the local snake, commanded the troops to split into 2 groups and cleaned up the remaining Chimera Ant forces in the entire palace. Many humans were also rescued. Chimera Ants are not good at management, so some of the original government officials of Dongguochuo were left to help them do things. For this reason, these officials were given a lot of benefits, including some beautiful women. Of course, the Ant King and the 3 guards hated these politicians, but they only used them temporarily. After the matter was accomplished, it was estimated that there would be no good end. Xiaoming also hated these politicians. It was unexpected that the Chimera ants had killed countless people, but they were not as evil as them. It is conceivable that these people had done many things that angered the heaven and the people during their tenure. Xiaoming was not polite at all and directly instructed Begui to kill them all. He did not even give them a chance to atone for their sins. As a result, the women who were rescued were those who were treated as playthings by officials and were sent to NGL through Guangmingding. At this point, the enemy had only the Ant King and 3 guards left. But the opponent's combat effectiveness was about 99%. Facing these people, Xiaohong and the others hid back in Guangmingding, and all the cannon fodder army surrounded the battlefield. At the same time, the newly joined insect-human Brabuda and the key girl Xiaomei also hid in Guangmingding. This lobster chimera ant is a B-level division commander. If it were the previous Guangmingding, it would not be able to bear his power. In the final analysis, Guangmingding is just an auxiliary space of the Mind Beast Butler, which is far less high-end and classy than Kunlun space. However, in the previous round of Naruto's reincarnation world, Xiaoming copied the Kamui ability of the Mangekyo Sharinan, bit off a piece of Kakashi and Obito's Kamui space, and merged it with Guangmingding. So the grade of Guangmingding has been greatly improved. Not to mention the B-level Brabuda, even the A-level Zhangzhou can come and visit occasionally. In addition to the uniformed butler, Xiaoming, and the 7 shadow clone who have the Kamui Mangekyo Sharinan can also open the portal to enter and exit the space. Perhaps it should be called Kamui Guangmingding now, which is more appropriate. Xiaomei is another case. If she hadn't been injured at the most critical moment, Catwoman had to treat her, and the direction of this battle would be completely unpredictable. It is said that a beautiful woman can overwhelm a city and a country, but I can't imagine that a sloppy girl like Xiaomei can do it. In the process of the battle between Master MaleProtagonist, Zhangzhou, and Xiaoming and Yuppie, the first to be eliminated was Shoto Makomahan. As the weakest member of the Chimera Ants punitive team, Yuppie quickly began to target him. Several powerful attacks and sneak attacks were blocked by others. Once, a 7-star shadow clone used Susanoo to block a disaster for him, but was smashed to pieces by Yuppie's 4-fisted round. However, this only slightly delayed Shoto's exit time. A few minutes later, Yuppie shot out countless spikes from his body, shooting at high speed in all directions. Lao reacted quickly and with the help of several purple smoke beasts, he only suffered minor injuries. He was cured by a few healing spells from the uniformed nurses in the distance. In the previous battle, Xiaochuo had secretly revealed Nicolo's ability to Xiaoming's shadow clone, pointing out the key to this battle. Therefore, Nicolo, who was closely protected by Zhangzhou, Xiaoming, and Lao, did not suffer any damage. As a result, Xiaochuo, who was not taken seriously, was in a miserable state. He was shot with more than a dozen transparent holes and bled profusely. If Yuppie escaped at this time, it would be possible. However, he did not want to bring this group of difficult guys to the king, so he continued to fight with the Crusade team. Although Xiaochuo was seriously injured, they were all puncture wounds. The nurses piled up more than a dozen healing spells and fed him some spiritual fruits, and Xiaochuo soon became lively again. However, he also felt that he was actually a burden in the battle against Yuppie. After listening to the guidance of Xiaoming's shadow clone, he went to the VIP room to find Xiaja and Catwoman. In order to treat Kokoro, Neferpitou had to succumb to Gon's threats. After hearing Xiaoming's trick, Shoto came over to bully others. When Catwoman couldn't resist, he sealed her hands and one eye in the dark hotel. Neferpitou was so angry that he kept meowing. If the cat hadn't had to bow its head under the eaves, Shoto would have been in pieces now. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 745. Soon after, Xiaomei was successfully revived by Neferpitou. According to the previous agreement, Xiaoji took Catwoman to the location of Kate's body to revive Kate. Xiaomei was held hostage by Shoto. If Catwoman refused to rescue Kate, Xiaoji would let Shoto kill Xiaomei. For the sake of the enemy Chimera Ant, he actually took his fellow human beings as hostages to force the Chimera Ant to submit. Xiaoming had a lot of opinions about Xiaoji's actions. Xiaomei's character can be seen at a glance. This is a rare good child. Xiaoming would not agree to use her life as a bargaining chip. In fact, after the two of them left, Xiaoming took Xiaomei to Guangmingding. Shoto guessed Xiaoming's thoughts a little, but he did not stop it. As for his own Guangmingding, let alone Xiaomei's eyes can't see, even if he can see, Xiaoming is not afraid that this simple girl will reveal anything. Regardless of the victory or defeat of this battle, this little girl should not become such a bargaining chip. As a hunter of the expedition team, it is meaningless for Shoto to hide. So he climbed to the top of the highest building in the palace and observed the surrounding situation with a telescope. As for the battle between the expeditionary team and Yuppie, it didn't matter if he was missing, and the expeditionary team even became stronger. Because Shoto's position was replaced by Killua, who killed Cheetah Kido. Killua is the spiritual place in the hunter world, a genius in a million, which is really amazing. His combat power and telekinesis are far inferior to those of Nakuru and Mo in terms of data, not to mention Yuppie and Zhangzhong. But his special ability allows him to have extremely high speed and good attack power for a short time. In addition to his accurate grasp of the battle situation, as a fire brigade on the battlefield, Killua's role is even no less than that of Zhangzhong of the 7th level. This is also unavoidable. At this time, Nakuru is fine, but Mo Lao's telekinesis is too much, and Zhangzhong has assumed more main attack responsibilities. Most of the pressure was transferred to the insect human guard who was not on the scene. At the same time, Xiaoming's shadow clones also frequently appeared on the battlefield. The reaction speed and combat effectiveness of the shadow clones are better than Mo Lao's purple smoke robot squad. But in front of Yuppie, there is basically no difference. Even if a few skeleton soldiers are released, it may not make a difference. Yuppie is too strong. Fortunately, Killua can save the situation at any time. In such a critical moment, Xiaoming was also smart. He moved out several machines that were just made with alchemy from Guangmingding, which can charge Killua and keep him in the best combat condition. The 7 stars shadow clones are rarely used on this battlefield, because Xiaoming's main energy is not here, but on Yapufu. The situation encountered by Yapufu is similar to that of Yuppie. They all don't want to bring the troublesome enemy in front of them to the Ant King. The two masters of the Zaldik family, Zeno and Silva, their rich combat experience and skills have brought a lot of pressure to Pufu. If these two guys have more terrible tricks, it will be troublesome. Hundreds of Zanpakuto around, under the control of the 10,000 swords technique and the blessing of spiritual power, are very sharp. 6 of the swords can be combined into a larger sword. The power is greatly increased. Pufu is very worried. If these hundreds of swords can also be combined into one, the power may not be able to withstand the Ant King. Although this worry is not true, it is understandable that Pufu would consider this situation. His own King of Flies has such ability. In addition, the group of strange mind beasts, 7-star shadow clones, guarding the periphery and ready to enter at any time should not be underestimated. They can suddenly transform into huge monsters, Susanoo, and must be vigilant to deal with them. The only advantage is that all these enemies are not fighting desperately, but more like delaying time. They will probably give up after a certain degree of consumption. Such enemies are not dangerous, but just more troublesome. Pufu actually thought about whether to have a big explosion. It is better to consume a lot of mind power and kill or injure one or two of them first. After thinking for a long time, he gave up. It is hard to guarantee that they will not be rebellious if they really fight with me. Killing them will probably consume more than half of my strength, playing with them for a while and wearing them out will only consume 1/5. In terms of time, the latter method is more time-saving. Pufu, who is good at precise calculations, naturally chose the most cost-effective method. So in less than half a minute, Gino and Shiba were surprised to find that this guard with unfathomable strength was actually saving energy and was more relaxed in the battle. Xiaoming also quickly felt that Pufu was passive in the fight. This was exactly what the three of them wanted. Each of them wanted to fight to the death. As a result, on this battlefield, it was unimaginable that they had a friendly match. Of course, even if you play a friendly match with Pufu, it is still a technical job and it is definitely not easy. Every attack and defense must be done in place. Just use less effort. If you don't perform well, you can turn the fake fight into a real fight at any time. You deserve to be killed by Pufu in one move. What finally changed the trend of the two battles was the explosion in the distance. That was the battlefield between the Ant King and President Netero. Although this battlefield was also within the range of Xiaoming's scanning map, Xiaoming really didn't have the energy to pay attention to what was happening here. The battle with the Chimera ant soldiers and the task of restraining the two big guards had already made him lose sight of one thing while focusing on another. Xiaoming only paid a little attention to the battlefield between the Ant King and Netero in the distance. He only knew that they had a verbal fight for a while, and then they started fighting. This is normal. During the battle, President Netero used his ultimate move, 100 Styles of Guanyin. The fight was very lively. This is still normal. Later, the capital and the palace were pacified, leaving only the battlefield between Yupi and Pufu. Only then could Xiaoming spare some energy to pay attention to the battlefield of the Ant King. As a result, Xiaoming felt like a jinx. Just as he put his energy into this battlefield, he saw that Netero's right leg and left arm were broken by the Ant King. The defeat was already decided. An ominous thought immediately filled Xiaoming's heart. The reason seemed self-evident. No matter how well the expeditionary team did the containment work, Netero lost, and the Ant King was invincible. This battle was still a failure in the end. In the Hunter secret realm of the Magic Planet game, President Netero is the master of Xiaoming's character Mutio Yu, and has taught Xiaoming a lesson. Although this Netero is not the same Netero, Xiaoming still feels sad. At the same time, he is also a little worried. If this is the plot, does it mean that the master in the secret realm will also die tragically like this? If he faces a battle of this magnitude again, what should he do to have a chance to save his master? For a moment, Xiaoming was in a state of confusion. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 746. Being concerned makes one confused. Xiaoming always thought that Netero, as the president of the Hunter Association, should be a super background board. His strength is unfathomable, he has many subordinates, and his trump cards are rich enough to build a building. It is impossible for him to get into trouble. Even if he fights against the Chimera Ant King, I believe that as long as he doesn't want to die, he will always find a way to escape. In fact, it is true. Netero certainly has a trump card to save his life. The road of dying together is just his own choice. Although the turtle is long-lived, it still has its end. At the level of the president, life and death have long been indifferent. What he pursues is a hardy battle. The black hand behind the Chimera ant mentioned before, its purpose is to let Netero die here. And Netero also guessed it almost right. Behind the seemingly tricked, he just went with the flow. At the same time, he also wanted to use his death to open a new era. This is equivalent to an unspoken tacit understanding. As for how the Black Hand behind the scenes intends to play, naturally there will be others to continue to play with him. Netero is considered to be asking for benevolence. Although Xiaoming had been taught by another Netero for a period of time, he actually did not understand his master. So, he saw a more terrifying scene with a horrified mood. Netero's shriveled, mummy-like body exuded a terrifying aura, and the old man spoke in an extremely gloomy and terrifying tone. Miru M, that's your name. And King Miru M, you actually don't understand anything. As he spoke, the old man pierced his heart with 2 fingers of his right hand. Xiaoming was shocked. What the hell is this operation? Master, are you crazy? The Ant King didn't intend to kill you. The next second, Netero's heart stopped beating, and immediately triggered the bomb that had been installed in his body. A big explosion occurred, and in an instant, there was almost no feeling. If Xiaoming's shadow clone was here, it would definitely be evaporated instantly. Fortunately, he used the Zerg's mental power skill scan map. The Zerg used to be a race that roamed the universe, and they have seen things that are billions of times more awesome than nuclear bomb explosions, so they won't be surprised. This bomb is used to deal with the Ant King, so it is naturally not a common item, but a bomb with power comparable to nuclear weapons. The nuclear bomb explosion on Pangostar will form a mushroom cloud. This bomb in the Hunter world will form gunpowder smoke like a rose, so it is called Rose of the Poor. Compared with the nuclear weapons of Pangostar, the weapons created by the Hunter world with various strange abilities and species are also very distinctive. Not only is it reflected in the gunpowder smoke, the explosion range of this bomb is relatively small, so the power is more concentrated. This can hurt the individual super strong creatures like the Ant King. There are also special toxins mixed in its gunpowder smoke. Even if you survive the explosion by chance, the terrible toxins will invade the victim's body and ensure that he will die. This toxin is also highly contagious. If it comes into contact with the victim for too long, it will be poisoned together. Because this bomb is too vicious, the Hunter world has issued an international convention to abandon and prohibit the use of roses. Unfortunately, how can human politicians and ambitious people abide by the contract obediently? There are still many rose bombs scattered around the world. In the hands of unknown people. Xiaoming is so annoying. He doesn't object to using nuclear weapons against Chimera ants. After all, it is a war of races. What he thinks is, if you have such weapons earlier, why do you have to fight so hard? There is no need to die together. Let's just throw one at the Chimera Ant Palace and everything will be solved. If you are afraid that the other party can dodge, you can throw more, or you can use the ability of long-distance delivery. For example, Xiaoming can take a butler beast and send the bomb over. I believe that with the strength of the Hunter Association, it is absolutely easy to find someone with similar abilities. If it doesn't work, send a few dead soldiers. If the Chimera Ant King is eliminated as soon as possible, how many fewer people will die in the Republic of Dongguodo? Unfortunately, politicians don't think so, the masterminds behind the scenes don't think so, and even Netero doesn't think so. In order to achieve their respective goals, the deaths of hundreds of thousands and millions of humans were not taken seriously by them. Xiaoming couldn't help but complain about this cheap master. It doesn't matter if you want to die in battle, but can you not take the lives of ordinary people lightly? Of course, such things are very common in human society. The Earth described in Far Island's Strange Man is like this, and Pangostar is actually not the same. This question cannot be thought about deeply. If you think too much, even you are an accomplice. Xiaoming shook his head and stopped thinking about it. Let's focus on the current situation. The hunters of the expedition team were too far away from the explosion of Rose, and their senses were not sharp enough, so they didn't notice it. But Yuppie and Pufu are different. They are at different levels, strong, and have unusual induction with the Ant King. They noticed the abnormality at the time. Something must have happened to the king. Can the king bear such power? The two guards couldn't hold back any longer. The whole body exuded an unparalleled aura of brutality. All the hunters who besieged them were frightened and retreated more than 10 meters, keeping their distance. The two guards swept everyone around with vicious eyes, and everyone who met their eyes felt a chill in their hearts. It was a merciless, naked killing intent. At that moment, not only did each hunter lack the courage to fight, but they even lacked the courage to escape. At this time, if the guards and the punitive team took action, they could basically kill anyone. However, this feeling only lasted for a moment. At present, Yuppie and Pufu would not waste time on these small fish at all. Going to the king's side was the most important thing. The two chimera ants flew away at a very high speed without anyone stopping them. Yuppie also transformed into a Pegasus. Flying at this speed, the energy burned every second is huge. Normally, they would definitely not be willing to fly in this way, which is too fuel-consuming. Only at this critical juncture, they can't care so much. In the two battlefields, 6 masters, whether it is Zeno and Silva, or Emolao's 3 masters and apprentices and Killua, did not dare to attack the two guards again. Once they took action at this time, they would definitely be counterattacked with thunder and lightning. Several people from the Zaldik family did not want to lose their lives at this time. Emolao and others were not afraid of death, but it was meaningless to seek death now. Unfortunately, no matter how hard the two guards tried, the first to reach the explosion site was still Xiaoming's 7 Lights shadow clone. On the road from the palace to the decisive battlefield, there was a 7 Lights shadow clone at every distance. Prepared for emergency use. The Rose explosion killed the closest clone, and the second closest one immediately rushed to the explosion site. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 747. Xiaoming still had plenty of time. The explosion area was still filled with hot gas and dust, which would also cause damage to the 7 Stars shadow clone. But before that, he had to consume the Susanoo outside the shadow clone. Susanoo is very hard. In the scanned map, Xiaoming clearly saw the seriously injured and dying Ant King. The shadow clone rushed over and quickly picked it up. He stuffed it into the bright summit with his backhand. At this time, the Ant King no longer had the strength of S level, and was almost not even E level. The whole body was unrecognizable, and the skin tissue and a lot of muscles were burnt. Only a section of the arms and legs remained. He was dying and could die at any time. This body with the smell of barbecue showed endless attraction to Xiaoming. Although there was not much oil and water, this was also the essence of the Ant King. As long as he was absorbed, the Insect King Green Xiaoming would definitely evolve to an extremely terrifying state. If the timing had not been unfortunate, the Ant King would have been sucked clean by the Insect King at this time. But the Ant King is now trapped in the cocoon and can't get out. Yin Xiaoming and Huang Xiaoming don't have the ability to directly absorb the Ant King's body. They can only keep it for the time being. He looked at the direction where the two guards came from. Xiaoming's intuition told him that the two guards had the ability to save the Ant King. And now his behavior will determine the plot direction of the Hunter world for a period of time in the future. Eat or not? This is a question. Eating the Ant King can not only solve the problem once and for all, but also achieve a significant growth. This temptation is too great. But can it really be done? Xiaoming thought about it carefully and found, absolutely not. The Ant King is currently the only means to control Yuppie and Pufu. Once the Ant King is confirmed dead, these two guys will be completely out of control. With Yuppie's personality and strength, he will definitely launch a massacre to retaliate against human society. Yuppie can cause at least millions of casualties. The first to bear the brunt is the Chimera Ant expedition team. Xiaoming asked himself if he had the ability to save these hunters in front of the angry Yuppie. Maybe the only thing he can save is his own life. This is not the most terrible thing. What is more worrying is the butterfly man Aliapafu. His ability is too strong, and his intelligence and skills are top-notch. This war between humans and Chimera ants will have two direct consequences. First, the death of the Ant King makes Aliapafu full of hatred for humans. He will definitely retaliate. Second, the death of the Ant King makes Aliapafu the new Ant King. He will become a more terrible existence than Miru M. Although his strength is definitely not as terrible as the Ant King, his intelligence will bring great trouble to humans. In fact, the character of the Ant King suppressed the use of Pufu's intelligence. If Pufu can give full play to his strength, the Chimera Ant army he established will be almost invincible. After this battle, Pufu has a good understanding of human abilities, weapons, and tactics. It is impossible for him to be bombed by roses again. How terrible will the Chimera ants become after developing new abilities and picking up human high-tech weapons? That is simply unimaginable. Pufu is definitely a tougher opponent than the king. Thinking of this, Xiaoming couldn't help but sweat on his forehead. He was really lucky that he didn't eat the Ant King at the first time. Alia Pufu and Yuppie are both working for the Ant King. Why didn't the Catwoman Neferpitou, who is also a guard, come over? Is there something more important? The answer is yes. At this moment, the Catwoman is using her body and life to block a more terrible enemy for the Ant King Xiaja. When the Catwoman and Xiaja came to the place where Kate's body was stored, the matter could no longer be concealed. Kate's soul has been reincarnated, and this body is just an empty shell. Even if Xiaja threatens Xiaome's life again, Bid has no way. Xiaja even gave Shoto an order to kill Xiaome over the phone. But Xiaome is now protected by Xiaoming, and he can't do anything. With Shoto's character, he is unwilling to kill an innocent little girl, and Xiaoming is just a perfect excuse. Xiaja was hit hard and sat on the ground stupidly, with endless regret and self-blame flashing through his mind. Kate could not be saved, and he took the initiative to blame himself for Kate being killed by Catwoman. In fact, the situation at that time was clear at a glance. Kate took Xiaja and Killua to scout the Chimera ants, but was discovered by Neferpitou. Everyone was an enemy, so of course they had to come and deal with them. Catwoman had no interest in Xiaja and Killua at the time, they were too weak. Only Kate was the strongest, so she fought with Kate. Xiaja was knocked unconscious by Killua and taken away. The analysis of this matter is also very simple. There is an old saying that a clay pot is broken if it is not separated from the well platform, and a great general is bound to die on the battlefield. Netero can die on the battlefield against Chimera ants, why can't Kate die? Is he more precious than others? This is not anyone's fault, especially Xiaja's fault. With Catwoman's strength, even if Kate wasn't dragged down by Gon and the others, she would still die if she was targeted. Besides, Neferpitou didn't attack Gon and Killua. It can be said that he gave them face. Is it really unfair for Kate to die in a fair one-on-one duel? Of course, Xiaja is determined to seek revenge on Catwoman, which cannot be said to be Xiaja's fault. It's just that the method he used was too extreme. Xiaja's current strength can only barely deal with a division leader of Chimera ants, and he is powerless in the face of the three guards. So he set extremely harsh restrictions and oaths for himself, and exchanged an extremely heavy price for the power to easily kill Catwoman. At this time, something Xiaoming did before had a great impact on the plot. Remember? At Xiaoming's request, Xiaochuo once sealed one of Neferpitou's eyes and both hands in the dark hotel. This is not a real injury, but it is just temporarily preventing Catwoman from using it. It can be returned at any time in the future. As brothers from the same school, Xiaochuo and Nicolo's abilities are full of compassion. None of them directly takes people's lives. Because of this action, Catwoman is unlucky. She took advantage of Zyaga's daze and summoned the toy repairer to repair her eyes and hands. However, her eyes and hands were not injured and did not need to be repaired. The toy repairer was also powerless. If it were Yuppie and Poof, they would have the ability to control the cells in their bodies and replenish their eyes and hands in time. It was Catwoman, the guard with medical ability, who could not do it. This is ironic. How could she fight Zyага without her hands? Let's wait for the next chapter to find out. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 748. In the end, Nephibit was not reduced to the point where he had to fight on his own 2 feet. Catwoman bit off her right arm. The right hand that was imprisoned in the dark hotel lost its meaning. Then he used toy repairer to repair his right arm, including most of his right hand. This kind of operation is equivalent to growing an arm again. Although it consumes a lot of mental power, it actually takes a long time. Just as her right hand was about to be repaired, Zyага finally burst out in pain. With his strong restrictions and vows, he gained the fighting power that only took decades of hard training to achieve. This is the ability that can only be obtained by compressing one's own life. And it can only be possessed temporarily for a period of time. After the battle, the oath will definitely come back to bite Zyага himself. Although it sounds simple, in fact, people without great determination, perseverance, or even extraordinary talent cannot make such an oath and restriction at all. If everyone could do it, those people with telekinesis who were about to be killed would be able to fight back. Anyway, it is a certain death outcome, and most people will not be afraid of the backlash at this time. Fortunately, most people can't do it, otherwise the world would be in chaos. When Xiao Ming activated his ability, his body quickly grew into a strong man in his 30s. Spanning more than 20 years of growth, Zyaga's appearance can be vaguely seen between his eyebrows. The long, straight black hair is flying high, which is the result of not getting a haircut for a long time. His whole body is now covered with strong muscles, and the power of thought in his body is surging like the sea. Seeing this, Catwoman felt relieved. Although the young version of Zyага in front of him was strong, he could only defeat his injured self. The threat to the king is not great. There is a slight divergence from the original plot here. The reason is that Neferbit has lost one eye and one hand at this time. In order to treat Xiaomei and himself, most of his telekinesis power has been consumed. To defeat Bit at this time, you no longer need that extremely powerful force. So Zyага subconsciously lowered his conditions a little. In other words, Zyaga's conditions have never changed, just enough to defeat and kill Bit. Now that the bits have become weaker, the conditions have automatically degraded. This is a good thing. The ability gained is reduced, and the price paid when being counterattacked in the future will also be much lower. Because of this, after Zyага was treated later, the effect was a little better than in the original work. Xiao Ming watched from a distance as Ganja in this state beat Catwoman violently, and the miserable howl of meow meow could not be heard. The battle scenes were exciting and intense, but Xiao Ming didn't feel any excitement, only the heavy sadness in it. Catwoman died to protect the Ant King. Although she kept screaming, Xiao Ming could clearly see the joy deep in her soul that she had suffered for the Ant King. Although Gon had the upper hand, almost all of Catwoman's body was broken into pieces. But he didn't have any joy in getting revenge. Because he knew deeply that after this battle, he would face a punishment that was almost the same as death. Both sides achieved their respective goals, but it can also be said that they are both losers. This is a battle with no winners. Catwoman and Gon both fight with firm belief. Although Xiao Ming has countless abilities and skills, at this moment he can only be a bystander. He was not qualified to intervene in this battle and could only watch. Watch with your own eyes Ganja beating Catwoman's whole body into a pulp. Then he watched Zyага, who had won the battle, fall to the ground, his body unknown, and his body began to change. Suddenly I felt a little sorry for these two miserable guys. This time Catwoman has achieved her wish, and it didn't happen in the original work that her telepathy became stronger after death and her corpse stood up to fight again. Because the battle is over. Not long after, Xiao Ming's Qi Yao shadow clone came to the messy battlefield wearing a butler uniform. Xiao Ming thought for a while, then put Catwoman's broken body into the light dome, and Zhang Zhong and the Neon Beast Chimera Alien Queen absorbed it together. In fact, this is a good material for death harvesting, but Xiao Ming is afraid of harvesting uncontrollable units, so he still eats it safely. This remnant body also contains a lot of essence, and Zhang Zhong and the others need to digest it for a while. As for Xiaoja, this terrifying state is completely beyond Xiao Ming's understanding. He didn't dare to touch it, nor did he dare to treat it randomly. Until Killua, who received the news, came and picked up Gon. At the same time, Jinyo and Ziba left with Xiao Ming's reissued gold and 2 aura fruits. They have completed the commission. If they don't run away now, when will they wait? The 3 masters and disciples of Mo Lao and Malian, the leader of the Chimera Ant Division, mustered up the courage and set off to the location where Rose exploded. Malian the chameleon continued to be carried by Nicolo, ready to become invisible at any time. They must confirm the life and death of the Ant King. If the Ant King dies, they must also confirm how Pufu and Yuppie will react. They have all seen Yuppie's anger explode, and they share the same worries as Xiao Ming. It can only be said that these hunters are so courageous and dare to commit suicide. No matter whether they encounter the Ant King or the guards, they are probably going to die. Haven't these guys heard of no zo no die? The luck of Master Mo Lao and his disciples was really unknown before they arrived at the place where the rose exploded. The Chimera Ant issue has been temporarily solved by Xiao Ming. The process is like this. When Yuppie and Xiao Yapfu arrived at the scene of the incident at extremely fast speeds, a 7-yam shadow clone of Xiao Ming was waiting for them. The simple-minded Yuppie was furious. How dare he challenge him? He was about to go forward and kill the clone, but the clone was not afraid. The smart Pufu immediately thought of something and stopped Yuppie, who was about to take action. First of all, this clone was just a mind beast. There was no point in killing it. Secondly, since the other party dared to show up, he must have something to rely on. The enemy would not expect a mind beast to deal with 2 big guards, right? If it was such a brainless opponent, it would be easier to deal with. Thirdly, Pufu knew that this kind of mind beast was not fast. Being able to arrive here earlier than himself could only mean that it was already nearby and did not die in the previous explosion. Then the purpose of this mind beast coming here is self-evident. It must be the same as himself and Yuppie. To confirm the life and death of the 2 in the decisive battle. Looking at his fearless look, Pufu could not help but think of the reason. He was surprised and happy. The happy thing is that the Ant King must be still alive, otherwise this guy would not dare to show up. What was shocking was that although the Ant King was alive, he must have fallen into the hands of the enemy. If the terms could not be negotiated, the king's life would be in danger. Pufu used mental communication to tell Yuppie his idea, and Yuppie agreed. Now is the time to use Pufu's intelligence. He must not let the other party do whatever they want just because the other party threatens the king's life. That would not only fail to save the Ant King, but also put himself and Yuppie in danger. He must find the other party's weakness. Pufu's brain was calculating rapidly. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 749. Since Xiao Ming can think of it, Mo Lao can think of it, Nicolu and Xiu Tuo can think of it, how can a top character like Xiao Yapi Yu Fu not think of it? In order to intimidate Xiaoming and gain the upper hand in the negotiation, Pu Fu must be tough enough. He even thought about how he would lead the Chimera ants to fight against humans after the death of the Ant King. The Chimera ants will no longer occupy a real country like when the Ant King led them, waiting for humans to encircle and suppress them. Pu Fu will lead all the Chimera ants to move underground. The underground here refers to both the real underground and the hidden activities. Not to mention the deep mountains and old forests in the hunter world, or the backward countries and regions like Meteor Street. Even the more powerful countries exist in some dark corners. Even if there are millions of Chimera ants, they can hide well in the human world. According to Pu Fu, in just a moment, he even understood the essence of terrorism. Talent. Perhaps this is something that Pu Fu had considered a long time ago, but it was not in line with the style of the Ant King, so he did not put it into practice. Not to mention that Xiaoming was shocked. Yuppie, who was listening, also felt a sense of enlightenment. It is estimated that from now on, he may not be as reckless as before. He will use smarter means to fight against humans. However, Pu Fu's threat did not exceed Xiaoming's expectations. He still held the biggest card in his hand, the Ant King Miru M. When Xiaoming told Pu Fu and Yuppie about the name of the Ant King, he learned the true meaning of the 4 characters Miru M, the light that illuminates everything. In other words, the Ant King's mother's habit of naming is the same as his own parents, so uncreative. The real name of the Ant King can actually be translated as Xiaoming. Can you believe it? Of course, it can also be called Xiaoliang, Xiaoguang, Xiaoshan, Xiaoao and other names. It makes people feel a little bit funny. Xiaoming used monitoring equipment to let Pu Fu and Yuppie see the current status of the Ant King in Guangmingding. Although he was seriously injured, there were 5 uniformed nurses around to take care of him, and he was treated from time to time. Pu Fu's loyalty and love for the Ant King made him reveal a little flaw at this time. He was worried that the Ant King would not be able to hold on, so he quickly separated a small part of his clone, turned it into energy, and asked Xiaoming to feed this energy to the Ant King. Yuppie also turned some of his body cells into liquid, condensed a small lump, and made the same request. Xiaoming did not agree, nor did he accept the 2 energies, but calmly stated a fact. Don't worry, with my main body taking care of you, your king will definitely not die. He paused and said, I can't give him this energy for the time being. If he recovers too much strength, it will also cause me a lot of trouble. Let's negotiate the terms first. The 7 shadow clone is almost the same as the real human body, otherwise how can they get their respective Zanpakuto? When Pu Fu started the negotiation, he used the ability of Scale Powder is Love Spring. Of course, the 7 shadow clone was not hypnotized by the Scale Powder. However, it would expose some of Xiaoming's truthfulness. This is also a good thing, otherwise it would be difficult to convince Pu Fu. Through the ability of the Scale Powder, the Butterfly Man believed that Xiaoming could indeed save the life of the Ant King. This made him feel a lot more relieved. So he started a bargaining negotiation with Xiaoming like a vegetable market. At this time, Mo Lao and others were on their way. In order to prevent the battle that might happen at any time, they dared not go at full speed. Such a long road, it would take a long time to walk. These idiots, there are many cars in the underground garage, it would be great to drive one out, it is labor-saving and fast. Unfortunately, Killua is not here, and no one came to remind them. The later they come, the better it is for Xiaoming, so Xiaoming did not remind them. The negotiation with Aurlia Pu Fu. It is more like a kidnapping and extortion. The key lies in what the kidnapper Xiaoming wants and what kind of guarantee he can get. It is obvious that Xiaoming is not after money and wealth, otherwise the remains of the Ant King would be more valuable to humans. But what kind of bonus should be offered? Pu Fu and Xiaoming are thinking about the same question. Xiaoming originally planned to absorb some essence from them. The characteristics of the same insect human can do it. Yuppie can give birth to many limbs, which can be cut off and absorbed. Pufu is more convenient, and the clone can be absorbed directly. But we have to guard against the clone's rebellion. This is Xiaoming's original plan. The abilities that Yuppie and Pufu just showed are even more perfect. In order to treat the Ant King, they directly condensed their own life essence. There is no need to worry about rebellion when absorbing such things. However, only the Insect King can absorb this. The Insect King is in seclusion. Even if the life essence is obtained, it can only be stored first. And this liquid essence is something that almost anyone can take. That is to say, not only Yin Xiaoming and Huang Xiaoming can absorb it, but even my sister, Wen Ji, and my parents can take it. What a rare thing this is. To be honest, Xiaoming is actually not worried about his own improvement at all, but is more concerned about his family members. As for whether the user is compatible with this life essence, or whether he can withstand such a rich energy, this is another question. Can we experiment step by step? As reincarnations, Xiao Jing'er and Zhang Wen have an advantage in this regard. Dad and Mom probably can't afford it. They have to find another way. Xiaoming asked for the price of life essence. Although Pu Fu was reluctant, he knew that he had to give it. He and Yuppie planned to use the essence of their whole body to save the Ant King, and now they had to be blackmailed by Xiaoming. Finally, it was agreed that 2 plus 1 would make 5. They each retained the energy to maintain their original body shape, and donated all the other life essence. Half of it would be absorbed by Xiaoming, and the other half would be fed to the Ant King. After losing so much essence, their hard power would drop to the same level as the division commander. If Xiaoming hadn't interfered, they would have found Miru M and donated all the essence of their whole body, leaving themselves with only a miniature body. So cute. Of course, Pu Fu couldn't trust Xiaoming casually, and the life essence couldn't be given away easily. If Xiaoming didn't keep his word and turned his face against him, Yuppie and Pu Fu would have to be slaughtered. In that case, even the Ant King couldn't be saved. In addition, Xiaoming couldn't just take the life essence and leave it alone. After Miru M was resurrected, there was no guarantee that he would do something. Besides, the reduction in the strength of Pufu and Yuppie was only temporary. If they ate more, they would recover after a period of time. The resurrected Ant King brought 2 guards with him, and his strength was only less than before, except for the cat girl. This battle was in vain. Therefore, Xiaoming must also make arrangements for the future behavior of the Chimera ant. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 750. Hey! What's wrong with you? Are the conditions I just proposed not excessive? Seeing the 7 Yao Shadow clones suddenly look frozen, Xiao Yapufu, who was negotiating with Xiaoming, asked in surprise. Xiaoming laughed, "It seems that we can't talk anymore. Your king has woken up." "What? Let me see." *2. Yuppie and Pufu exclaimed at the same time. They had seen the situation of the Ant King through the monitoring equipment just now. He was seriously injured and just barely saved his life. He shouldn't wake up at this time. It is not necessarily a good thing for a seriously injured person to wake up early. But don't let it be a last gasp. Seeing that the two of them were so anxious, Xiaoming expressed his willingness to relax some of the conditions. "Pufu, you make a small clone, and I will let that clone go to take care of the Ant King in person, okay?" Really, this was a surprise for Pufu. The other party was not afraid of his internal and external cooperation. Not afraid of him supplying energy to the Ant King? Or maybe this was a test. So Pufu deliberately created a clone the size of a bee to show his sincerity. In a blink of an eye, this clone was taken into the bright summit by the clone of Qi Yaoying, who was wearing a butler's uniform. As soon as the little bee Pufu entered the space, he felt a huge telekinesis locking onto him. He couldn't help but sweat on his head. The other party was really fearless. I don't know what this place is. I can't feel gravity and it is surrounded by walls full of strange plants. The plants formed various weapons, and many gun barrels were pointing at me. I don't know if there is a bigger space outside the wall. This is probably a space created by someone with telekinesis. Without the guidance of the creator, it is probably impossible to enter and exit. And there is also a master of the same level as the 3 guards in the room, which is Zhang Zhong. My B clone, plus the extremely weak Ant King, is really no match for this person. Pufu looked at Zhang Zhong's appearance and wanted to complain. Has no one said that you look like our chimera ants? Are we relatives? It's not good to help humans deal with their own people, right? The next second, the little bee Pufu saw the Ant King, whose body was still incomplete and was sealed by the barrier. Most of the skin on the body was burnt, and only half of the limbs and tail were left. The head was a bit unexpected, and it had recovered its superficial health at this moment. The reason why the Ant King woke up early was floating beside the Ant King at this time, chatting happily with him. It turned out to be the blind girl Xiaomei. She couldn't fly, and she was floating because there was no gravity in Guangmingding. Now Pufu knew why the Ant King woke up. It must be related to this little girl who had 2 lines of snot running all year round. Even Xiaoming didn't expect things to develop like this. Before, the cat girl Neferpitou cured Xiaomei, and then followed Xiaja. Later, she died at Xiaja's hands. At that time, Xiaoming took Xiaomei into Guangmingding to protect her, and also liberated the fighting power of others. After the explosion of the rose, Xiaoming got the remains of the Ant King Miru M and put them in Guangmingding. But he didn't dare to put them in Kunlun. In the world of My Date with the Vampire 2, an oolong incident happened. At that time, Xiaoming took the evil star El Nino into Kunlun to avoid the moonlight. As a result, El Nino was not shy at all and directly absorbed the energy in Kunlun to grow. After maturity, he was very strong. Because of his strength, Zhang Chen had to compromise. Xiaoming also had the opportunity to completely change the plot of Zombie Date 2. Since then, Xiaoming has also learned his lesson. This kind of guy who absorbs energy vigorously will never be easily put into Kunlun. Even if he put it in Guangmingding, Xiaoming did not dare to be careless at all and used the barrier technique to seal the remains of the Ant King. At the same time, several Mind Beast nurses were sent to treat him. At least he was guaranteed not to die. Zhang Zhong was here to monitor Miru M. Unexpectedly, Xiaoming still underestimated the Ant King, or underestimated the Ant King's love for Xiaomei. Xiaomei is just an ordinary person. Even if she is under the same roof, she has no ability to sense that the Ant King has entered the same space. After all, the distance between the two is a bit far, and there are barriers and several walls in between. The main thing is that there is also the barrier of Xiaolu's demonic power. She is explaining the rules of military ceremony to Xiaolu, Xiaohong and other people. They are dizzy. But the Ant King is at a different level. When he first entered Guangmingding, his consciousness was still completely blurred. In his subconscious, he was actually waiting to die. Suddenly, Xiaomei's voice came into his mind vaguely. I don't know how his burnt ears can be so sensitive. Miru M's mind was awakened by Xiaomei's voice. The power of true love is really awesome. If this is the case, Miru M seems to have a better future as a zombie. He felt that someone was healing his body, so he consciously concentrated the healing power on his head, just to see Xiaomei earlier. Xiaoming was shocked by such persistence. It seems that Xiaomei is really important to the Ant King. So Xiaoming increased the intensity of the treatment, not only using the uniformed nurse to use healing magic, but also sending out shadow clones to use medical ninjutsu. Miru M's head was able to recover quickly, and Xiaomei was also transferred here. This little girl greatly stimulated Miruem's desire to survive. At the same time, being able to talk to the commander all the time is also the happiness that Xiaomei has always dreamed of. As a little girl with low self-esteem, she never felt that she was qualified to love the commander-in-chief, and she didn't think her feelings would be responded to. But in fact, Xiaomei and Miruem have already loved each other deeply. Although they have known each other for less than 10 days. Before, Pufu always thought that Xiaomei was an obstacle on the road of the Ant King, making the king weak and willing to compromise. Only then did he realize that Xiaomei actually had the advantage of stimulating the Ant King's will to survive. Fighting for Xiaomei, the king can probably exert 200% of his strength. Was he a little prejudiced against Xiaomei before? But now is not the time to consider Xiaomei. Wang the little bee Pufu cried and flew in the direction of the king. Then he crashed into the barrier with a bang and almost broke into pieces. Pufu, you are here too. The Ant King also saw his loyal subordinates and temporarily shifted his attention. Can you tell me what happened? Yes, I will report to you right away. The little bee Pufu glanced at Zhang Zhong, knowing that lying at this time would be exposed. So he told everything he knew. When he was halfway through, Yupi also entered Guangmingding. He listened to Pufu's story. After Pufu finished, he also told what happened to him. The last two guards stared at Zhang Zhong, and their meaning was very clear. It's your turn next.